Hello, everyone, and welcome to Positive Podcast. I've got a great guy here in the studio today. This is a guy I've known for a long time. I would like to welcome TV personality, traveling magician, and comedian Lee Terbosic.
Hey, thank you. It's good to see you, Bob.
Great seeing you too, buddy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today and joining us for our podcast.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be with you.
I know without a doubt there are young people that have watched you in your career. There's people that have seen you on your television show, and you have encouraged and inspired them to probably pursue magic or some other dreams that they've had.
You know what? Through these years, I was always the young kid, reaching out to the magician, like my mentor, Paul Gartner, because he inspired me. And now I'm seeing that dynamic taking place in my career where I have all these young magicians and young performers reaching out to me because they're yearning for this information. They have a passion for magic or being in TV or doing that stuff. So I'm constantly fielding going through and seeing a lot of these young performers hitting me up and wanting the deets. And so I absolutely talk to them and I give them the encouragement to pursue it and go for it, and that it's worth it if you put the time and the effort in, and if you love it what you're doing, you're winning every day. So I it's really cool to be in that moment now where I think where my mentor was at that moment.
Knowing that other people look up to you and you're in the spotlight all the time, just your willingness to help people says a lot about the person that you are.
Well, I think that's what if you give, you get. So that's how I've always lived that. So I've always tried to even give magic lessons to people that are interested, people that really, if they're into talking about magic and or what I'm about, I'm willing to share it.
Well, hey, you've had a great career. You've been doing this quite a while, even though you still look like you're 21 years old. But when did things begin for you? At what age was magic introduced into your life?
I think I'd have to say, so I've gone through this over the time, and every time I think about it, there's little details that pop back into my head. It was probably right when I was 8 years old. Mom and dad, I grew up near here. I grew up in Lincoln Place, so I was a city kid. And mom and dad, I remember one Christmas they took me to the Moose Lodge in right up the road, and it was for a Christmas party. And I remember there being a magician on stage for the kids, and I was a kid in that audience. And I remember watching this guy, make a dove appear and and do these interesting routines, and I was amazed. I was just transfixed by it. And it wasn't till I saw magic on television, like David Copperfield. I remember seeing him. And then it was around my 10th birthday where I was actually, not on my birthday, but I was actually at a friend's birthday. And I remember they had a magician live. Now, so I went from being at a Moose Lodge, 2 years prior, but being in a room with maybe 100 kids to now being in a room with maybe only 15. And so it's I was much closer to it, And I remember seeing this birthday magician, do a birthday party magic show. But it amazed me because I was seeing it so close. And it was after that where I came home and I said, Mom, Dad, I want to learn magic tricks, or I want to, how did he do this? Or tell me, I want to learn this. I was asking my parents, but they're not magicians. They don't know, they were like, what do we do? So I think that their solving of this was they're seeing me. Now, by this time, I'm already playing sports and, doing all these other activities. And so they're seeing me interested in magic tricks as a hobby, I collected baseball cards and did all those other hobbies, but now it's oh, he wants to do this hobby. Let's tell him how he needs to learn it. You're gonna have to read books, and I was reading these magic books, and I didn't want to give them back. I wanted them, and so I kept them. You know what I mean? I literally just kept magic books because these were the secrets. Because what I was finding out very quickly is when I was learning magic, I was running down the steps and doing tricks for my sister, but also for my parents. And I remember when I started to stuff started to fool them, and they didn't really know, and they wanted to know, and I didn't want to tell them because that's the fun part about being a magician, and that's a powerful thing for a 10-year-old to have, to be able to fool your parents and that let them, they're honestly telling you Lee, how did you really do that? And I'm going run back upstairs, learn another trick. And it was that cycle of wanting to come down and fool the adults. And that's where I got obsessed with it, and it took over my life.
So from the birthday parties, the little things, you started gaining some recognition
Sure.
More people found out about who Lee Terbosic was, and your career started to take off at that point.
Through these years, I had gotten a mentor, and my mentor played a pivotal part in me being a magician. I wouldn't be a magician today if it wasn't for him. He became my mentor when I was 16. I had met him when I was 14, and as a young punk magician, and then I saw him, and he's a world class magician, and I was just amazed by the level that I have to get to. I was like, that's gonna take a long time. He's insane, and so, but I also saw that he made magic his life, and it was like he was a magician for his life, and so that's really cool. I was like, I want to make magic my life. He saw that I was really making this my life, and so he then invited me on to come with him to help him produce his shows in other cities. So now I'm going on the road with him to help him produce his shows. I was learning so much, seeing him interact with an audience, seeing him interact with the bookers, seeing how he gets to a hotel. I mean, I'm taking in everything. How he, just his process, what he does before a show. These are pro level things, and I'm getting a behind the curtain access to it because I have a passion for it, and I have the ability with Paul, in a relationship with Paul, that he trusts me to set up the magic. So I'm setting up the show for him, and then I'm in the back and I'm running all the lights, and I'm doing what Steve's doing. I'm running all the lights and the cameras and the transition because I know his show inside and out.
Yeah.
Because he's my hero. In 2010, when another really pivotal moment happens for me, I'd already gone out of college, and I'd been performing like crazy across the country doing these college networks and college universities. But it was at this moment where I was again getting another behind the scenes access to what a live theater show looked like with Paul. And when Paul invited me to New York to produce 10 Fingers at SAM1 in New York City in Manhattan, that SAM stands for the Society of American Magicians. And we have different, and there's another organization called the IBM, which is the International Brotherhood of Magicians. But both these organizations, the SAM was one of the founders was Harry Houdini. And in New York, the SAM1 was the Houdini chapter. That's like that was his home. Like if you think about moose lodges across the country, we have our own like little locations that we get together and hang out, right? And trade secrets. It's a magician network. Like it is really like a little Hogwarts. But so I'm going into Manhattan, the number one place for magic probably in the world. I'm going into the number one location of SAM1, where the Houdini chapter, and I'm watching Paul Gertner perform for their 100th anniversary. And I was like, that moment, I really got to really understand who his level of who he was. And because he had been on the Tonight Show and he did some big stuff. But at that moment, that performance, it was the next day where Paul said, before we were about to pack up the car and come back to Pittsburgh, he said, Lee, he goes, do you want to go find Harry Houdini? And I went, huh? He goes, yeah, you want to go to find him? I go, what do you mean? He goes, we'll go find his grave. I go, Harry's buried in New York? He goes, yeah, he's buried up in Queens. So at this moment, I'm finding out that Harry Houdini's buried like 2 miles away, and like we're gonna go there. And so we drive there, and we go and hang out at his grave, and we talk about. It was super cool, We're sitting at Harry Houdini's grave. I'm sitting there with my mentor magician, the best, Paul Gertner, and we're talking magic history, and we're talking about magicians from our past, like Harry. We're talking about magicians of the present, like David Copperfields and David Blaine's, and then we started talking about magicians of the future. And that's when he said, Lee, you're our future. He's like, you're the future of magic, man. He goes, you're the next generation. And that's when I was like, wow, I'm really a part of this conversation. Like what? I just was like, I just tinker and but he saw the potential. And it was when we got home back to Pittsburgh that Paul gave me this book.
Wow.
And this book was one of my treasures, because he gave me this book. This is a first edition Taschen magic book. So this book, I opened this book, this red ribbon was in this book, and it was on this page. And then I see, that's Harry right there. And then I go, oh, holy crap, what does that say?
Pittsburgh Post.
That says the Pittsburgh Post. This is what caused that lightning bolt to hit me, to go, I need to do this. This is written in my DNA. Like I'm crazy. I'd already been doing a straitjacket escape, never upside down, but always inspired by Harry. You know what I mean? And like I remember obviously being a big student of magic of Harry Houdini and learning about his career and learning about David Copperfield's career and learning about Paul Gertner's career. So I was then thinking about my career. You know, where do I see myself in 5 years? Do I really see myself hanging upside down in downtown Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Let's do it. And it was at that moment I made a decision. I'm going to make this happen. So I envisioned it. And my envision was to capture the exact same photo. And that's what I did. So on when I did Houdini 100, my end goal was to end up with this photo because I wanted it someday to be printed in a book for a kid to discover. And I hope somebody 100 years from now, or now it would be 90, 95 years from now, would replicate it again. Another future Pittsburgh magician. I hope they hear this interview or have heard me ever talk about this, and they someday, 95 years from now, they replicate it again.
I remember when you chose to do this. The city of Pittsburgh was on fire. You had celebrities there. You had so many people that showed up. And what on earth made you hang yourself from a crane upside down?
Yeah.
I get it, but you had to be crazy to think that you could do this.
Yeah, you got to be a little crazy. But that's part of the business. That was what I was in. I'm already in a crazy business. I'm a magician for my life. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about taking risks. And I saw this as a very calculated risk to take. And it was just like, it was something I needed to do. I needed to do this. I needed to bring it to the city of Pittsburgh. I'd already built this fan base over these years, and I was going to continue building it. And I knew I'd even build it even bigger and bigger. And by the time I would get to that November 6th, 2016, I'd capture the attention of the city of Pittsburgh in unlike any other way. And that was my goal.
That day, you had a huge audience that showed up.
Yeah.
Some great footage which captured the entire event.
Yeah.
And I think it was Rocky Blyer and Franco Harris that actually put you in a straitjacket.
So I picked those guys and Tom Savini. I picked those three guys. They're all friends that I had made over the years of doing shows for them or being at events and stuff. And so I became very tight with those guys. And so I picked Rocky because he's from Appleton, Wisconsin. Houdini, little Houdini factoid there. And so that was my link with that. I picked Tom Savini because I just have an incredible respect for Tom Savini and what he has done in his industry. And he's a big fan of magic, and he was a big supporter of me early on. And then I invited Franco because Franco was a friend. He was a good buddy, and he was a funny guy. And I knew he'd add a really cool element to it. He's a legend. And my joke with him is I invited him because I knew he would be there if I fell. he would immaculately save my head from hitting the concrete. So yeah. So I always do the joke in my shows when I tell the story, and I do the immaculate reception pose. And I joke, and he that's the joke with him, but he loves it. He was so much fun. I had the terrible towel in my pocket that day. I spun the terrible towel after I got out of the straitjacket at 100 feet up. We did it at 100 feet. And man, it was a ride.
What was going through your mind as they were raising you up? Your adrenaline had to be going through the roof.
Crazy. So going into it, like the days prior, I was ready to do this. I'd played this thing out 1,000 times in my head. I envisioned this moment. Now, there was a few things going through my head at that exact moment that I got locked in. So if you ever go back and look through some of the footage of Houdini 100 on the day of, when I'm on stage and I'm just getting into the straitjacket, I start to kind of in my head start to question some things. But it wasn't what you think. I wasn't nervous to do the stunt. I wasn't nervous to be upside down or be 100 feet upside down in a straitjacket. I've done all the work. I'd been doing inversion therapy. I'd hang upside down like a bat in my house to build up my tolerance to being upside down, because that's a dangerous element of that stunt. I'm not, heights don't scare me. I'm good. So I was just ready to do this performance. But at that exact moment that I'm getting locked in, I was questioning whether or not I secured the terrible towel in my back pocket.
Of all things to worry about,
that's what I was worried about. That's what I was worried about, because I knew that if I got hooked onto like a guppy on a hook and raised up, and that terrible towel came fluttering down, preemptively.
Ooh.
That's a sin.
Ooh.
And lucky enough, it didn't. It stayed where it was. Before we did the stunt in early morning when the crane was there, my team actually said, they said, Lee, do you want us to link you in and so you can feel what it's like to be at that, at that spot or at 100 feet? And I said, no. They were like, why? I said, well, Harry didn't get a trial run. I don't either.
Wow.
And they went, okay. And so what I did is I took a laser pointer and I showed the crane operator. I said, I want to be right there. And he went, okay. And I said, but then I want you to beam me over the audience. So he's going to move the arm of the crane, and then I want you to take me up another 60 feet.
Oh.
And he went, are you sure? He goes, because then you're going to be over the people. I said, yeah, that's what we're doing. And he went, okay. A couple hours later at noon, because that's exactly the time that Harry did it in 2016. So I'm doing it to the minute. Wow. That was my goal. One Houdini 100. I did, and that was the thing. Everybody said, like, what would you have done if it would have rained? Oh, I said, I was doing it that day. No one wants to see Houdini 101, okay? Like, we're doing Houdini 100 this day. It's got to be to the minute, man. I planned this moment for my life the last 5 years. So it was, luckily, they got me to as I'm going up, they get me to that exact spot. I had a camera guy, a photographer named Jared Wickerham. He's an incredible photojournalist in Pittsburgh, incredible photojournalist. And he was the guy that I wanted to take this photo because this was taken by a photojournalist named Gennaro. I've done my research on Gennaro. I can't figure out who he is. I don't know. But he was a Pittsburgh photographer that captured an incredible image that has inspired me. So I wanted to capture that incredible image again so it can inspire another generation. And so I hired Jared to be my camera guy. I trusted him with this image. I said, study this image, make this image happen, And so on my way up, he knew that whenever I got to a certain point, he was to take the photo. So he went, and then 10 seconds later, they beam me over, and I go back up to 60 feet, and then they, and then I could feel the energy of everybody below me. It was wild.
I was going to say, could you hear everybody down below cheering you on?
Yes. As I was going up, I was thinking about the terrible towel. I could hear people screaming my name and you can do this and and everybody's in the roar of the crowd and like it was really, really crazy.
So if anybody wants to know how to be successful, rent a crane.
You rent a crane.
Hang yourself in a city of Pittsburgh upside down.
Yep.
But don't forget the terrible towel. That's the most important part of it. I remember watching you get lowered down and seeing Donnie Iris there.
Yes.
He was right there by stage.
Donnie was there.
He looked, I don't know if he was excited that you were still alive or if it was like, wow, Donnie, I can't believe you did it.
Donnie's my man. Donnie's been a good friend of mine for years. He's my golfing partner. We go golfing together. And hell of a golfer Donnie is. But Donnie, I had told Donnie about this in probably 2014. And he was just like, you're crazy, man. You're crazy, man. And I said, you're going to be there, though, right? You're going to be, I'll be there front and center. I think it really hit people in Pittsburgh to see something so unique, and that something, it's a 1 in 100 year performance, it has it has that Pittsburgh history. And so I think it hit all the right bells for people to bring them out and view it.
Absolutely, and what's awesome, we have a great city here. We're full of entertainers,
right?
We're full of musicians, people like yourself, comedians. There's a variety of talented people in the Pittsburgh area. What was awesome about this performance for you, though, this took you to a national level.
It really did, yeah. It really opened the can of worms that I'd been seeking to open for so long.
So the Discovery Channel contacts you.
Yeah, and they said, hey, would you be down to do other Houdini stunts? I said, yeah, absolutely. They said, what if I could, we could craft a show around that idea where you would go to cities like you did in Pittsburgh, go to other cities that Houdini had performed in, and you would do the stunts. And if there was, some type of anniversary or something that, if we could do it in the exact same spot, like that was kind of the idea that I had gotten pitched on this call. I knew that we were going to cast another person onto the show. And they told me who they wanted to cast. And they said, we want to cast this guy named George Houdini. And I went, Houdini? They went, yeah. I go, I already know where this is going, and I am all the way in. Because George Houdini is the great-grandnephew of Harry Houdini. So I flew into Texas, and that's the day I finally meet George. And we instantly hit it off. And we became best buds, and he's my best friend now. When we were there, I'm teaching him magic tricks. I'm fooling the crap out of him. Like, he's asking me questions about Houdini, and I'm telling him, and it was a really fun journey to get to that moment and to just be hanging out with camera crew. We're filming everything. Every second you're around, there's a camera in your face, and you're on set. Everything's a set. Literally on day one, they were measuring me. Like, I got in, they were like, "We need to measure you." Shh, 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 shh. I go, "What's this for?" They go, "Oh, we're building you the water torture cell."
Yeah.
What? I knew I'm doing it, but like I knew going into the what the show was. I had all the 4 episodes, and so I knew what tricks I had agreed to do, but I didn't know water torture cell was going to be weak. Was going to be the first one out the gate. Right. I thought we were saving that one for last, maybe. You know what I mean? Because that's like, I think in my mind it was the most difficult. So now I'm mentally getting into the idea of it's go time. It's just like Houdini 100 all over again. It's no longer shaking hands and making friends. It's work, and I'm going, this is week 1. Like, I got how many? I got to do the bullet catch. I got to do buried alive. Like, this is going to be crazy. And so for the next 3 months, that's all I did. I lived and breathed Harry Houdini with camera crews all day long.
You know what was it was an awesome show, man. And
Thank you.
I guess when you know somebody that's going to be a star of a national TV show, you're kind of drawn to watch it.
Yeah.
But my kids and I sat them down and we were watching the stunts, but they did a great job putting the show together. Mm-hmm. The suspense was always there.
Yeah, right.
And even though we knew you were going to be okay,
sure,
there was always that slight doubt, like, is he going to make it?
Well, to be honest with you, when you're doing these things, I mean, you can fail safe the crap out of this stuff. Things go wrong. And that's the unfortunate part of this business. Like, you do know, I mean, you put yourself underwater and, in that situation, if you don't do the exact technique correctly, you can get hurt and you can die. And there have been a lot of guys that have perished doing this stuff.
Yeah.
The bullet catch alone has killed 13 magicians in the last 100 years.
Wow.
And so, I mean, that's not a good track record, So doing that piece of magic for a television show, even once, is nerve-wracking.
So of all the tricks that you performed on the show,
yeah,
do you have one that I know that was the scariest?
That was the scariest, yeah.
What was your favorite one?
That was the buried alive. Buried alive was my favorite.
Really?
Water torture cell was really fun, but I think that one. I think the reason why I enjoyed the buried alive more over water torture cell was because I literally got to think like Harry Houdini. This one had never been touched, even by any other live magician ever. I know of no magician in history doing the buried alive on stage. So I would be the first guy doing this.
Wow. That's awesome, man. What a great experience. To work hard your entire life, to have so many opportunities in front of you. That's a dream come true for anybody out there.
Every time I run into people, they always, even a lot of Pittsburghers, "Oh, I watched your show. It was amazing."
Yeah.
That means always the world to me when I hear that.
Well, I know there's a bright future ahead of you. I know there's more to come. If anybody wants to follow you, if they want ideas on how they can check out where you're going to be,
sure,
any up-and-coming shows, Terbosic.com.
Terbosic.com. 52upclose.com is my live show for at the Hotel Monaco. And at Lee Terbosic on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. So,
well, Lee Terbosic, thank you so much for joining us on Positive Podcast. You're definitely a fun, enthusiastic guy. I know there's a lot more to come.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.